So for this project and most projects that I'm using a frame, I seal the glass to the frame by putting silicone caulk around the perimeter. After it's dried for 24 hours, I then take painter's tape and put that around the perimeter also, just as an extra precaution against resin leaks. Once you're done with that, I sift through my glass to find the glass I want for the project, and I start to assemble it. Now this glass is glass that I've found at garage sales, thrift shops, that I've broken up, cups and plates and whatnot, and tumbled in my tumbler. I have several different tumblers. I use the largest tumbler for large pieces because the smaller tumblers won't hold those, and the smaller pieces I usually put in the smaller tumblers, just depending. Anyway, one of the hardest things about assembling the sea glass sometimes is if you have to put it on top of other pieces, a lot of times it slides off and you're constantly putting back or trying to rearrange it. When you're done assembling your project, then it's time to prepare the resin. When using resin, I always use gloves. I wear a respirator. It's in your best interest to wear a respirator, and it's in your best interest to do it in a well-ventilated area. The resin I'm using for this project is called Dr. Crafty. It's like all the other resins. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, the same equal amounts of resin to hardener. Once you have them both in the cup, you mix them for about 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. You do it as slowly as you can. It creates less bubbles. Scrape the sides, scrape the bottom, and when you're done, you're ready to pour it on your project. It's a good idea to have rubbing alcohol on hand. I use that to get the resin off of my hands if I happen to get any on, or have gotten it in my hair before, or if you get it up on the sides of the frames at all, it'll clean it right off. Now, even though we've sealed it with caulk and we've put tape on there, you still should put it on some type of protective paper just in case there's any leaks or drips. So the first thing I do is I take some sand that I picked up at, I don't know, the Dollar Tree or one of the craft stores, and I mix that with a little bit of resin to get the consistency I want, and then I spread that at the very bottom of the pitcher. I've used a little piece of driftwood that I found on the beach and a starfish that I've bought from the craft store for the rest of the tree. I guess I should have picked up the sand when I was there too, and then I wouldn't have had to buy it. Then I pick up some little shells and put them into the sand, which makes it look real cute, and then I pour the rest of the resin onto the glass. So I pour this onto the faux sea glass, and what it does is it makes it shiny. But the problem with this is it's a very light blue sea glass, and when you pour resin on top of sea glass, it makes it more translucent. It's already translucent, but this makes it more translucent. So I think if I had to do it again for this particular one with the very light blue, I would put the sea glass on top of the resin instead of the resin on top of the sea glass, because it would have still held in place. But I think it turned out real pretty. So normally after I pour the resin, I use a heat gun to blow the bubbles out, but there really wasn't any bubbles. So with my heat gun, and I think most heat guns, there's two settings, low and high. I always put it to the low setting because the high setting will tend to blow the resin up over the side of the frame, and you don't want that. And then on the back of the heat gun is the temperature setting, and I usually set it right about 500 degrees. That seems to do the trick to get rid of the bubbles. You would blow the air over the areas with bubbles. It can take up to 5 minutes depending on how many bubbles you have. Then I put a few iridescent white sprinkles on. Next, you need to let it dry for 24 hours on a level surface between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The next thing I did was I took the tape off, and didn't it turn out pretty? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel.